This is a wasp nest from yesterday, yellow jackets. Um, Figure I'd do a little video explaining about a bit about their lifestyle. Similar to honeybees, they have four stages: the egg, the larva, the pupil, and the adult. But there are some differences. First of all, their nest here isn't wax. Bees make wax from some glands under their abdomen. These nests are all made from wood. Uh, what happens is the wasp will take untreated wood, chew it up into wood pulp, and then make these paper mache nests. That's all species of wasp. So what happens is, if we can find some eggs, looks like a bunch of eggs have hatched. A little brown speck down there. That's one of the eggs that died. But you see some young larvae here. So what happens is the egg hatches. With honeybees, the egg hatches after 3 days. With wasps, it takes about 5 to 8 days for the eggs to hatch, and then it goes into a larval stage. So here you see a bunch of the larvae. See a bunch of the larvae, and they're still kind of alive. So you see the larva, and they stay in this stage for about 2 weeks. And during that time, what happens is they're fed, and they'll go through a molting process. So they'll molt about 5 times over the course of that. Um, 2 weeks, and each time they molt, they shed their skin and they grow. So after that 2 weeks, what happens next is they'll spin a little cocoon. With bees, after the egg hatches after 3 days, with honeybees, after the egg hatches over 3 days, and it turns into a larva. And then when it's time for the larva to go through the pupa stage, the honeybees will cover it over with wax cap. With wasps, the larva itself spins a little like a silk top cocoon, and then they go through the pupal stage. And the pupa stage lasts anywhere from 8 to 18 days before it fully emerges as a fully grown wasp. So I'm gonna try to, need to get a tripod so I can remove the cap. Okay, so this is the silk cap, and if we can, without damaging it too much. But yeah, so it's in the pupal stage right now. You see the larva next to it. So in the pupal stage, that's when they grow their legs and start to grow their skin and their wings and all that stuff. And let's see if we can find when it's a bit older. There we go. So this is a bit older. And you can see it's starting to get its color. Well, it was starting to get its color before it died. Let's put it back on here. Yeah, so you can see it's starting to get its color. The legs, the arms, the mandibles. And move this one next to it. And with honeybees, when we look back at the cells here, um, with honeybees, they use some of the cells for the brood, which is the larva, the pupil, the eggs. Um, with wasps, they don't store food in the nest. So each one of these cells you see, where in a honeybee hive you have the cells and they store some food in there. So there's a certain amount of cells that they use for food, for the nectar, for the pollen, and the bee bread. So there's a certain amount of cells they use for that, and then there's a certain amount of cells they use for the brood. So there are times during the season with honeybees where they will what's called backfilling. So instead of putting larvae and eggs in there, they'll just fill them up with honey. With wasp, every one of these cells that you see in this particular nest had 5 layers of these cells, with different sizes, some of them larger than others. But with every one of these cells you see, they'll fill it with a wasp. So if you have about 1,000 of these cells, it's going to fill up with an egg, and so you're looking at 1,000 wasps. That's how these wasps produce so quickly. And a lot of people call me and they're like, I didn't realize there were so many. Yeah, it's they keep going nonstop. So this is um this is what a wasp nest looks like.